Hello, this is Ron Willauer again, and we are in the 8th video of the series on the book of Matthew. And looking at chapter 4, starting in verse 12, as you can see on the screen here, I have a video of me, and alongside me is the scripture passage we're looking at, and I have it, the first part of it that we're going to look at, I have highlighted. I will read it. It says, "Now when he heard that John had been arrested, he withdrew into Galilee." And he here is referring to Jesus. "And leaving Nazareth, he went and lived in Capernaum by the sea in the territory of Zebulun and Naphtali, so that what was spoken by the prophet Isaiah might be fulfilled. The land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali, the way of the sea beyond the Jordan, Galilee of the Gentiles. The people dwelling in darkness have seen a great light. And for those dwelling in the region and shadow of death, on them a light has dawned." So when Jesus heard that John the Baptist was arrested, it doesn't tell the story about that here, but when he heard that he'd been arrested, he withdrew into Galilee. And I'm switching here to some notes that I have. Jesus withdrawing into Galilee may have been avoiding persecution, avoiding him being thrown in jail too early. And that is feasible. Jesus wasn't going to necessarily walk into persecution ahead of time, but he had also told his disciples, recorded in Matthew 10:23 here, when they persecute you in one city, flee to the next. So Jesus may very well have been just avoiding being arrested. And that could be the leading of the Spirit of God in him. There's not a contradiction there. God can work through circumstances. Well, the other lesson in this is that people that are persecuted for their faith in Jesus don't necessarily have to stay there and be thrown in prison, killed, their goods confiscated, whatever. It's okay to flee. Jesus said to do that. And he does direct people that way. We read about that later in the book of Acts. I didn't put the verses here, but the persecution of Paul, in particular of the church in Jerusalem, caused them to flee into the lands around them. And when they did, they shared the gospel. They shared the message of Jesus with people. So God used that, God directed through fleeing persecution. Now, the passage that we just read talked about Jesus going to the area of the tribes of Zebulun and Naphtali, which means the message and ministry of Jesus were for all 12 tribes, not just for Judah and Benjamin, which had constituted the nation of Judah. And it also was an area that had a large Gentile population, probably majority Gentile from what I gather, which foreshadows he was for the Gentiles. But to understand the significance of the fact that Jesus was a light to these other two tribes that were in the north part of Israel, you have to go back to the history of Israel and how they split into two nations, 2 tribes and 10 tribes split. And what happened was Rehoboam, the son of Solomon, the people came to him and said, "Lighten our load," because Solomon really taxed us and used our labor and everything to build the temple and to build Solomon's dwelling. And we want it to be lightened. And Rehoboam consulted his young advisors, not the old wise ones, and they said, "Tell him I'm going to make it even harder," basically. And when he did, the people rebelled, and most of them would not serve Rehoboam as king. 10 of the 12 tribes, actually, Judah and Benjamin, stayed with Rehoboam. The other 10 tribes left, and Jeroboam became their king. And Jeroboam led them into idolatry because if they continued to go to Jerusalem, where God said that's where you need to worship, that's where you need to do the sacrifices, etc., he was afraid that they would go back to King Rehoboam and Judah and not follow him and serve him. So he set up two ends of the northern kingdom, which was Israel. The 10 tribes was north of Judah, it was in the south. He set up idols at either end of the nation and said, come worship here instead of going to Jerusalem. So anyhow, they split, and the 10 tribes of the nation of Israel were defeated by the kingdom of Assyria and led away captive and scattered throughout all the lands. And they were replaced by people from all the different nations. And Samaria, was their capital. That's why the Jews didn't like the Samaritans, because they were foreigners. There were a few native Israel left in the land. When you conquer somebody and deport everybody there, you can't necessarily find every single person and get rid of them. There's always a remnant. And they intermarried with the foreigners that came, and that ended up being the people of Samaria, the city that had been the capital of Israel. So, well, Judah was later defeated by Babylon and taken captivity, but they were brought back, the same people. Babylon did it differently. They didn't scatter the people they defeated. They took them and into their country and settled them there. And then the people of the nation of Judah came back to the nation of Judah and back to Jerusalem and rebuilt the temple, etc. So the idea is these 10 tribes were lost. Well, to a great extent they were, but not totally. And you find that out by reading the scriptures about it, because what happened is that those people of the 10 tribes that wanted to follow the true God, and especially the tribe of Levi, the priests and the Levites, they came to Jerusalem because that's where you would worship the true God. And so the 2 Chronicles verse or passage that we have here, it says, "For the Levites left their common lands and their holdings and came to Judah and Jerusalem, because Jeroboam and his sons cast them out from serving as priests of the Lord. And he appointed his own priests for the high places and for the goat idols and for the calves that he had made. And those who had set their hearts to seek the Lord God of Israel came after them from all the tribes of Israel to Jerusalem to sacrifice to the Lord, the God of their fathers. They strengthened the kingdom of Judah, and for 3 years they made Rehoboam the son of Solomon secure, for they walked for 3 years in the way of David and Solomon." So here we see in particular the Levites and the priests, because Jeroboam said, "I'm going to have my own priests for these false idols. You're out of here." They said, "Well, we'll go back to Jerusalem." So that's why when you read the New Testament, there are Levites like Zacharias, the father of John the Baptist, and there are priests and the high priest and all that, because, well, there would have been anyhow, just the ones that had lived in Judah and Jerusalem, I guess. But the tribe of Levi is there. So there's not just the tribe of Benjamin and Judah, there's the tribe of Levi. There's 3. So they were all there. 2 Chronicles 15, 8-9, the next passage here. As soon as Asa heard these words, and that was another king of Judah a little later, as soon as Asa heard these words, the prophecy of Azariah the son of Oded, he took courage and put away the detestable idols from all the land of Judah and Benjamin, and from the cities that he had taken in the hill country of Ephraim. And he repaired the altar of the Lord that was in front of the vestibule of the house of the Lord. And he gathered all Judah and Benjamin, and those from Ephraim, Manasseh, and Simeon who were residing with them, for great numbers had deserted to him from Israel when they saw that the Lord his God was with him. So this is a little later on, but a lot of the people of Israel left the nation of Israel, the 10 tribes, left those 10 tribes and went to Judah and Jerusalem and aligned with King Asa. In particular, it says Ephraim and Manasseh and Simeon, 3 of the largest tribes. So we see that even though they split and the 10 tribes, when they were defeated by Assyria, were scattered, many of those 10 tribes had moved to the land of Judah and became part of Judah and were there during the time of Jesus and the writing in the New Testament. Luke 2:36, the next passage here. And there was a prophetess, Anna, the daughter of Phanuel, of the tribe of Asher. She was advanced in years, having lived with her husband 7 years from when she was a virgin. And when you read this whole passage in Luke, this is around the birth of Jesus, and Anna is prophesying about Jesus. She's in the temple day and night, so she's in Jerusalem. She's of the tribe of Asher, not one of the tribes that Judah and Benjamin that, for the most part, comprise the nation of Judah. So that taking into account, then you read Acts chapter 26, verse 6 to 7. And it says, and now I stand here on trial because of my hope in the promise made by God to our fathers, to which our 12 tribes hope to attain as they earnestly worship night and day. And for this hope I am accused by Jews, O king. This is Paul on trial saying that the 12 tribes are striving and hoping and earnestly worshiping night and day, not just 2. So even though the nation of Israel, the 10 tribes were scattered, they weren't totally scattered and they were not totally lost. And this really, as I say here, it debunks some of the claims of those who say our group is the 10 lost tribes of Israel. We're the really true people of God. Well, those people were scattered and people could have descended from them, but I don't believe the people that say they have records that they're the ones. But the point is that much of those 10 tribes ended up being part of the nation of Israel, or you'd say the nation of Judah, but the people of the 12 tribes were all there in the land at the time of Jesus. And these groups, it's really interesting that they're really on racial basis. There's British Israelitism, which is saying that, oh, those 10 lost tribes, they all moved to England and they're the British people, and the British people are the people of God, and we have special status with God because of that. And then there's Black Israelitism, and they say, no, those people all went to Africa, and they were black, and we're the people of God, and black people they have special status with God because we're the 10 lost tribes. Now we got 2 extremes there, which they can't both be right, but it really seems to be race based and not about the actual situation, I guess maybe is the best way to say it. So I think I will stop there. Maybe the video is not too long at this point, but that's kind of its own section, and we'll go here to verse 17. Oops, didn't mean to move it. I meant to highlight it. I'll have to do that over here. Kind of learning how to handle all this. Well, anyhow, verse 17. I'm pointing at it with the cursor. We'll go back to that next time. So thank you for listening.